Hey, and how you doing, folks? Yours truly, Randee Ran here for another edition of today's talk. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever heard of a flat classroom? Certainly, you've heard of the traditional classroom where students come and they sit and they learn, they read and interact with the teacher, so forth and so on. But I'm talking about a flat classroom, and a flat classroom being uh, where you may have students that are here in New York, say Westchester County, New York, and they're interacting with another group of students or teacher in another location, say in Japan, California, Florida, Virginia, even. Well, we talked to a lady named Julie Lindsay today, and she's the president of Flat Connections. And what she specializes in is indeed that the flat classroom uh, experience where she may be tutoring or conducting a class or what have you in one location where she is, which is in Australia, and she may be teaching a group of students somewhere else in Europe or in America, Africa, certainly. And she's well known for this flat classroom experience, and we talked to her today as I am trying to establish that kind of very thing where children may be in one location, say here in Westchester County, New York, and they may be working on a project with students in Japan or any other location. We discussed different technologies that could possibly be used, say like Skype, Google Docs, Edmodo, and some other technologies that I've never even heard of. As the interview was very informative and quite groundbreaking for me because I just came across this very topic about 3 or 4 years ago when I read the book by Tom Friedman, "The World Is Flat," as I am a very big fan of Tom Friedman's, and it's a great book, by the way. You should read it. It will introduce to you what's going on here in the 21st century and how uh, you can move forward in the 21st century with regards to securing a job or a new career. It's a beautiful thing. It's quite the read. I would suggest that you read it. But at any rate, we talked to Julie Lindsay, and she described what it is that she does at the flat classroom uh, for the flat classroom experience. And I would strongly suggest that you listen to the interview and take notes as Julie Lindsay pretty much broke it down as to what the flat classroom experience is all about as it breaks barriers. There are no walls in a flat classroom experience, and as you listen to the interview, uh, you will get the picture of what it is that she does. Thank you for the time and enjoy the interview. And we're back. Yours truly, Randee Ran here for another edition of today's talk. And we are so glad, man, we are so very glad to have as our guest today Julie Lindsay. Julie is the founder of the Flat Classroom Project. She's also a global collaboration consultant. She's a teacherpreneur, an innovator, a leader, and author. Julie has worked in international schools for 15 years as an educational technology and curriculum leader all across Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. She's also the founder and CEO of Flat Connections, and she designs and manages online projects for all K through 12 levels. She's currently a quality learning and teacher leader online, and adjunct lecturer for the Faculty of Arts and Education, Charles Stewart University. She's the director of Learning Confluence Party Limited, also an Apple Distinguished Educator and Google Certified Innovator. Today, we're going to be speaking about global collaboration using 21st century technology in the classroom. For argument's sake, we're calling it quote unquote flat classroom experiences. Welcome to the show, Julie.
Thanks, Randy. It's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
For the sake of our audience knowing what flat classroom experience is. Could you please explain what is a flat classroom experience?
Well, I use the term flat classroom has been used in the past, and I use flat connections or flat learning or connected learning. It's really using the available technologies to what we call flatten the classroom walls. And you can sort of visualize, a typical school as we've known it in the past has a physical space, it has walls, learners learn within a confined environment. But when you flatten the classroom or flatten the walls of learning, learners have that opportunity to learn with others at a distance, learn with others in different areas of the world, learn using supported by different technology tools. So when you do that, when you flatten the learning, all sorts of things are possible. So you're not confined to that one or two teachers with 30 students. You can have all different combinations. You can have cross-age, you can have cross-cultures, and you can do all different types of group work and bring in experts and send your learning out there as well through blogs and through Skype calls, etc. So it's really, thinking about what are all those things that are really great and exciting about education and putting that all into this whole flattened learning concept and practice.
Now, could you please speak about the importance of establishing these flat classroom experiences for students all over the world?
Look, this is so important, and I think more and more schools and districts and countries even. I mean, our Australian curriculum, I'm based over here in Australia on the East Coast at the moment, our Australian national curriculum, even though we have state education departments like you do in the States, or it now states the national curriculum, they want students to have this intercultural understanding. So, and more schools are now building in, this whole idea of global education, global competency, also digital literacy, digital fluency. So all of these concepts, problem-based solving, project-based learning, working collaboration. So all of these concepts and practices are included, involved, are part of these flat classroom experiences for students. And how can you have a student now in this day and age coming through elementary school, middle school, high school, who is not able to understand how to connect with peers or people of other ages beyond their immediate learning environment? It's actually imperative that we develop these skills, digital citizenship, global citizenship. I'm sort of throwing a few terms at you here, but all of these things come into this whole sort of flat classroom, flat learning, connected learning experience.
Your website states, flat connected learning is where all learners have freedom to communicate across borders rather than up or down with no hierarchy. Please explain what this means and why it's so important.
As I said, I talk about flat connected learning, and there is this freedom because you're not confined to the constraints of your immediate learning environment. So if you're a student in grade 8, for example, you don't have to just keep learning with other students in grade 8. You can reach out and learn with different generations. You can learn with different experts in the world, with other peers in different parts of the world. So there's no hierarchy. Now, this actually comes from, you may know or you may not know of a wonderful educator in the States called David Warlick. He's based in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. He was a great influence to many of us in the last 15 years or so. He's now retired, but he was the one who coined that whole flat classroom piece. And of course, we've stolen the idea, of course, from Tom Friedman. I did. Maybe David didn't. David. Uh-huh. It's not about the teacher delivering the learning to the students or the expert necessarily delivering the learning to the students. It's about flattening that whole hierarchy. And as David says, when the hierarchy is flattened, where does the energy for learning come? Well, the energy comes through these external connections and collaborations. And that's where the excitement and the student autonomy is another piece of this as well. Mm-hmm. If we flatten the learning, well, it's not just teachers directing learning. Students have to direct their own learning as well. Very important.
Okay, now I see that your projects begin with children as early as the third grade. Is there any particular reason why we should start with children at that early of an age?
Oh, yes. In fact, I run projects for kindergarten or pre-K up to grade two as well, and they're slightly different. But third age is a key point. What students are about 8 years old, 7 or 8, coming into an online global collaborative project where it's not just a Skype call, it's not just bringing an expert into the school, or it's not just Skyping with a partner classroom, which is also very important, but it is putting these young students into a global collaborative learning community. And it's a great age to start developing these global digital citizenship skills. What does it mean to be learning online at a distance? How do you simple things like, how do you introduce yourself when you're not face to face? What do you say? What do you say back to other people in a discussion forum? And how do you move beyond? Of course, at this age, it's how do you move beyond? I really like pizza, and this is my favourite online game. How do you move that conversation into, well, the global issues in our community are this, this, and this. And this is where that particular project I run, it's a grade 3 to grade 6 approximately level. I bring students in from across the world. We know that there's this empathy built between students. Yes, we do all like pizza. Yes, we have favourite online games. But then now what? Now what can we talk about? Let's talk about our different cultures, our different global issues, and then let's look at our similarities and what can we build together to not just raise awareness, but perhaps to start building solutions as well. So grade 3 is an excellent place to start for this.
Has your organization been successful in its efforts in bridging the gap when it comes to people understanding cultural differences? If so, how?
I think, the work that I do with Flat Connections, the work that I do through my consultancy, I think it's been extremely successful because I have brought people together from different parts of the world. I've provided opportunities for people to work together, and this includes educators as well as students. Mm-hmm. So when I run, for example, one example is when I run global online projects, I bring educators together to kickstart the project. We talk about the goals and aims. We get to know each other, and at regular points, often it's once a week or once every 2 weeks, we come together in real time, which means some of us it's 5 a.m, some of us it's 10 at night, etc. But this is what we do because it's really important to bring educators in particular face to face to be able to talk through what the collaborative learning objectives are. But through that, we build empathy, we build understanding, we define what the work is that we want the project to do, the learning experiences we want the students to have. And then, then it filters down to the students. What does it mean to work with someone in the Middle East or in China or, over here in Australia, if you're in the States? What does that mean? Uh-huh. And, how do we build that cultural understanding and that global awareness? So I think, we have been very successful with that.
I'm sure you have. As I was reading Tom Friedman's book, as I'm a big fan of his, and as I came across what you were doing there at Flat Connections, I was just my mind was blown. My mind was blown, and I was thinking, "Oh my God, if I could just forever interview these people and what you do there, I would just consider it the coup of the century." As you are a prime example and a living example of how the world is now indeed flat. Through this technology, the walls have now been knocked down, and it's just as simple now as looking at your computer and seeing somebody that's 15 hours away from you.
And there are other great examples around the world as well. I mean, there's a professor in the United Kingdom called Siddhartha Mitra. He runs School in the Cloud. He calls it School in the Cloud, and he has this thing called Granny Net or Granny Cloud, where he asks people who are perhaps retired or perhaps don't work full time or whatever. You can still work full time and do this. Come online and talk to people, talk to students around the world, and share with them what you do. And GrannyNet, it works really well because people go online and they talk to students in India or other places, and they show them how to cook a meal, or they show them how they knit or crochet or something.
Uh-huh.
So it's just, once again, it's another really great example of flattening the learning and making learning visible through the use of technology.
Julie, if you could please speak about what special permissions and clearances you had to obtain in order to make the global collaborations happen.
Well, I was working in schools for 30 years. I'm not in a K to 12 school anymore. I work actually full time at the university level, as you mentioned before. When I was in schools, I didn't get special permission. I built global collaborative learning into my curriculum, which is what I encourage all teachers to do. And the schools always had the confidence in me that I was aware of the global digital citizenship requirements and policies at the school, that I knew how to keep my students safe and private as needed, that I was monitoring and facilitating the global project at all times. So, these are really key aspects of how you manage an online global project. So I know the projects that I run, teachers individually need to work this out in their own schools. So they need to get permissions. Sometimes teachers don't get permissions. Sometimes, people come to me really excited, yes, I really want to join. And then they come back and they say, no, my board or my principal or my head of school or whatever has said no. They're not sure that this is a good thing for us. It's going to... what happens is there's actually a lot of fear factor still, and particularly when they hear that we've got classes from the Middle East or from different countries that are perhaps not politically aligned with the country that they're in, or there are a lot of things happening in the world. But of course, the reason why we're doing this is that we can start to stamp out some of these fears and these stereotypical attitudes about different cultures and different parts of the world. So it's often difficult. Often teachers have to work really hard to get permission and to set up their school so they're able to do this. But when they do, the benefits really are great.
We are speaking to Julie Lindsay. She's the founder of the Flat Classroom Project. She's a global collaboration consultant. She's a teachpreneur, innovator, leader, and author. She's worked in international schools for 15 years as an educational technology and curriculum leader across Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. She's the founder and CEO of Flat Connections, and she designs and manages online projects for all K through 12 levels. She is currently a quality learning and teacher leader online and adjunct lecturer for the Faculty of Arts and Education at Charles Sturt University. She's the director of Learning Confluence Party Limited. She's also an Apple Distinguished Educator and Google Certified Innovator. She's also a member of the Horizon Report Advisory Board. Folks, she has made the rounds, and we consider her a very big time expert when it comes to what we're talking about today, which is global collaboration using 21st century technology in the classroom. We're calling it quote unquote flat classroom experiences. And Julie was so nice enough to give us some of her time today. Julie, you mentioned a moment ago about how doing this in the classroom with students, whether they're in K through 12 or whether they're in college, by doing something like this, you can address stereotypes. You can, introduce different cultures to different people. I want to know, how can global collaborations like these bring about positive change in the world, in your opinion?
Yes, that's a really good question, Randee. I was talking about fear factor before. I think we fear things we don't know, we don't understand.
Yes.
And I've seen this in the projects that I've run in the last 10 years in particular. And I've run conferences. I ran a conference in the Middle East where I brought students and teachers from the US and from, I think, 8 different countries into the Middle East, into Qatar it was, to do like a global project across 2 days. It was a project-based learning conference. And we sat and we did lots of activities, etc. But, that's the type of understanding where you bring these different cultures together that I try to emulate across these virtual global projects, where you actually get to talk to people, you get to mix with them and to work with them and to realise that they're really just very similar to you. And we have a number of examples. Some of them are in the first book I wrote and some in this new book that I've got now as well, of people, students, teachers, just suddenly realising that, the world isn't a place to fear. It's actually a place where we can forge these relationships, forge these friendships, and by getting to know people, we have a much better understanding. And we do therefore want to see change. We don't want to build a world around fear and hatred. We want to build a world around connections and collaborations. And this is a really important realisation. And I've seen, teachers have reported back to me many, many times how their students have had this epiphany in the project, and how in some students it's actually changed their career direction. When they've left high school, it's changed where they've gone in college and beyond.
I see that you're listed as a teacherpreneur. Now, could you explain exactly what that is, and do you believe that this is the best way forward for teachers, given the complexities and hardships so many of us face today in the workplace?
The term teacherpreneur is really a combination of teacher and entrepreneur.
Yes.
And it's a bit of a funny term. Some people take offence to it. I quite like it, so I use it. And a lot of people in the States actually use it as well. So it's basically, my meaning of it is that it's a leader in a school. It doesn't have to be a leader because you're called, or you have that position or you have that salary. It's really being a leader in the school who takes the best practices in education and takes the latest or the best technologies and uses them to forge these new pathways for learning.
Okay.
And this can be someone, as I said, in the classroom who's doing different things, is out there putting themselves on the line, having having arguments with their head of school, stressing out their colleagues because they're different and their colleagues don't understand why they have to be different, that sort of thing. But focusing on the connections and the collaborations and really having this deep-seated understanding that things can be different, and so let's do it. So that's where that term comes from. And yes, I encourage everyone to be a teacherpreneur. Or whatever, edupreneur is another term. I think there's a book called Edupreneurs. Whatever term you like. Another term I talk about is outlier, which is perhaps a bit more extreme, where you really are. That's where that comes from. So yes, we need a lot more teacherpreneurs and outliers in education.
In your opinion, should more school districts engage in global collaborations as part of their curriculum? Please explain.
Oh, absolutely. Look, it's imperative. It should be in every school, in every class. My goal is that every student in every grade level, right across K to 12, has a global collaborative experience every year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and has an extended global collaborative experience that goes for 6 weeks or more, where they actually get to work with other people. On top of that, the classrooms are flattened so that educators know how to bring the world in and how to carefully put their students out to the world as well in a continued flattened pedagogical sort of approach to learning. So sort of two things I'm talking about there, that really crafted, designed and managed global project idea, and then this sort of flat learning pedagogy as well. So that's the ideal. We have such a long way to go in all, most countries, or all countries really. I don't know a country that's really forging ahead with this. There are pockets of brilliance. Here in Australia, we're struggling terribly with connectivity. A lot of schools don't have adequate internet access. Things are blocked. I think the government schools, many things are blocked, and teachers often don't know how to get them unblocked, though it is possible if if you talk the right talk. But so we've got quite a few hurdles to get over, and quite a few understandings to share to move this forward.
Why do you think there's such a resistance to doing this?
It's not so much resistance from the point of view of the teachers. I have teachers all the time saying, "Oh, that's great! I'd love to do that. That's I really wish I could implement that in my class." It's coming from, it's coming from the people who set up schools, the people who set up education systems.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming not so much from a fear factor, a little bit from a fear factor, but more from a, we have to keep people private and safe and we've got to protect them. And because we don't understand what this is really all about, we're just going to keep protecting them. But, that's starting to erode because we are having more conversations. And it's really, these days, it's not just about safety and privacy and protection. It's about learning opportunities. So it's about setting up the conditions of the learning environment so that these opportunities can take place. Now, we have, there's a state just up the road from me. I'm in New South Wales here in Australia, but the Queensland, for example, they block Skype in the school, and I think they do in other places around Australia as well. But, they block Skype, so therefore there's no fluency in, if the teacher says, oh, great, we're reading this book, let's Skype the author.
Mm-hmm.
They can't. They just can't do that without actually going through all the paperwork, jumping over 10 hurdles,
mm-hmm.
and then, the moment is lost. The learning opportunity is lost at that point. I had a teacher in Adelaide in one of my projects. This is South Australia. She wanted to join a Skype call. She's a librarian. She had grade 7 there. She couldn't do it. Very frustrated. She ended up bringing her own laptop and her own mobile internet connection into the school so she could do that. So she had to jump over and bypass completely the school system at the time. So these sort of things are very frustrating, and they do deter people. People say, oh, it's too hard, I'm not going to do it. I'll wait for the system to change. But what we need is more people saying, hey, let's change the system now. That's what we need.
Yeah, exactly. I tell you the truth, I think it's the best way moving forward, especially with regards to introducing different cultures to different people. Of course, there's a business piece to it, too. We're living in a global economy now, and, a lot of businesses don't even do business travel anymore. They just use Skype or go to meeting, FaceTime, what have you. But I think this kind of technology and what you're doing, especially what you're doing, is breaking down barriers of ignorance that really need to be broken down. What are some of the different software that you used in these global collaborations?
That's a good question too, because there's a wide variety that you can use, and just to list some of them, of course, Skype is one that teachers use. I use, we use Edmodo. Edmodo.com is a great tool for bringing students and teachers together, and it is actually a private environment, and you can invite who you want into that, and you can create groups, etc. We use collaborative tools like Google apps, Google Docs, Google Spreadsheets, etc., so students can work together. We use wikis still. Wikis have been around for 10 years, pretty much, and they're still valid and viable collaborative learning environments. It's having those places and spaces where students and teachers can come together and co-create. That's really important. So we use virtual classrooms for real-time meetups. We use tools like Padlet, for example. It's like an advertisement for some of these tools, but so these are some of my favourite ones, and I'm happy to share them. Padlet is a great place for sharing multimedia and just having a visual digital handshake, things like that. So things that are readily available. Some tools we do pay for. And that's important too, to have that balance of free tools and then tools that you do pay for, so that you can rely on the tool always being there for you and get help if you need help with it. Not to say that a lot of the free tools, of course, you get help with anyway now, because they're just such good tools and have such support systems. So the thing is, I think the message here from me is that schools who want to participate in online global collaboration, you can't do it through your own school learning management system. So if you've set up whatever you've got Moodle, if you've got Blackboard, if you've got whatever the latest one is that you might have, and there's hundreds of learning management systems across the world, they're set up specifically for your school and your community, or perhaps your district and your set of schools, whatever. You cannot well, you cannot. When I say cannot, I have not seen anyone who's been able to flatten the walls of a set up learning management system. So even schools who are adopting Google Classroom, usually that is set up specifically for that school community. It has a specific purpose. So when you want to jump out and do online global collaboration, you've actually got to find other tools that all parties can access.
Yes.
Which might be an independent set of Google Docs. It might be another tool like Edmodo. It might be other Web 2.0 tools like Padlet or VoiceThread. VoiceThread actually is one I use a lot as well. It's a wonderful tool. So that's a really big consideration for people when they venture into this.
We have been speaking with Julie Lindsay. She's the founder of the Flat Classroom Project. She's a global collaboration consultant. She's a teacherpreneur, an innovator, leader, and author. She's worked in international schools for 15 years as an educational technology and curriculum leader across Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. She's the founder and CEO of Flat Connections, and she designs and manages online projects for all K through 12 levels. She is currently a quality learning and teacher leader online and adjunct lecturer for the Faculty of Arts and Education at the Charles Sturt University. She's the director of Learning Confluence Party Limited and an Apple Distinguished Educator and Google Certified Innovator. And she is a member of the Horizon Report Advisory Board. Julie, please feel free to plug your website, your books, or any other project or projects that you are now involved in.
The work that I'm doing now is through Flat Connections. So the website is flatconnections.com, and that's where you'll find my projects. You'll also find online teacher courses. If you go to the Global Educator link there through flatconnections.com. Now, I would like to just share with people my new book has just been published by ISTE, the International Society for Technology and Education, and it's called The Global Educator, Leveraging Technology for Collaborative Learning and Teaching. You can find that by going to the ISTE website, or you can go to theglobaleducator.net, and you'll find information about where you can purchase that. So I'm really excited about this book because it took me 3 years to put it together. And it's actually has contributions from over 130 educators from across the world, and it has 36 case studies or stories. They're basically stories and what people have done in the last 20 years to support online global collaboration and global learning. So I'm just really excited to be able to bring this to educators so that they can learn. There's a whole section about being a global educator, another section about being a global leader in education, about another one about online global collaboration, and then of course, where do you get started and who do you go to and what do you join, etc. So it really is. It's starting to get some really good reviews, and it just has something in it for everybody. People who want to set up programs, educators in the classroom who want to know the best tools or who to connect with. So there you go. So thanks for that opportunity to talk about it.
Absolutely. We thoroughly thank you for your time today, Julie. And I tell you the truth, as you were a guest on the show today, I certainly hope that you will come back and then become a friend of the show, because I too am trying to establish a program similar to what you are doing there at Flat Connections. And I tell you the truth, I'd love to have you back on the show. Thank you so very much for your time today.
That's great, Randee, and look, good luck with your ambitions there as well, because there needs to be more of us out there doing this. So it's been a real pleasure talking with you today. Thank you.